Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, we're fishing a brand new lake. I'm pretty excited to see some new water. This lake is called Poplar Tree Lake. It's in the Meeman-Shelby State Forest, above Memphis. And we rented a cabin out here for a couple days, and so we're just having some good outdoor family time. But today, we finally got out on this lake, and the first thing that really just hit home to me as soon as I saw how this lake's set up is there's a ton of overhanging trees on the shoreline. And this lake does not strike me as a lake that gets a lot of water circulation. And lakes that don't get a lot of water circulation and are kind of protected from the wind by all the trees around it, or the contours of the land, they don't get a lot of good dissolved oxygen to the deeper parts of the lake. And so even though the rule is most fish live offshore during the summertime, lakes like this really can be extremely productive up shallow, especially if you got nice shade lines, which this has plenty of it. And so the first thing that I wanted to pick up today is a hull body frog. So we're throwing this frog right here. This is the Z-Man Leap Frogs. It's actually been discontinued, which is kind of a bummer, because it's not kind of a bummer, it is a big bummer, because I love this frog. It's one of the most compressible and easy walking frogs I've ever used. But we still have a bunch of them in the box. But regardless of the hull body frog that you're using, great bait to skip underneath overhanging trees and get in those little shade pockets that you need to get in this time of year. So we're gonna go fishing. The tackle for today, we're using a 40-pound test Seaguar Tactics braid, which is actually probably a little bit too light. I wish I had 50 on here. The rod that I'm using is a 7.3 heavy action all-purpose series rod from Fitzgerald, and a high-speed gear ratio reel. This is the VLD 10 from them. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's catch some bass underneath these shade lines with a frog. There he is. Nice. Crushed it. Gotta love a frog bite, man. I love throwing frogs during the summertime when you have a lake like this that has overhanging trees. It is just so much fun, and it's such a really good pattern. And there's some lakes that this is one of the best patterns that you can possibly fish. Everybody thinks during the summertime, fish deep, fish offshore. But there's some lakes that just don't get enough oxygen offshore. There's just not enough dissolved oxygen when the water gets really hot. And so these shade lines up shallow where there is oxygen can be some of the best. That's one of the reasons, but man, it can just be so good. And just the fact that you're throwing a frog, dude. Frog bite is like as fun as it gets. I mean, it's like topwater fishing is already a blast, but frog fishing for some reason is just that much more exciting. So one thing that you need to keep in mind when you're fishing a frog in this type of situation with overhanging trees is that you don't need the tree limbs to be touching the water, but anytime you've got that where the tree limbs are actually penetrating the water, that is a much better situation. That's probably, you're probably gonna get way more bites, like 5-to-1 type ratio. You know, and you know, lakes that maybe are in a little bit of a drought period where the water level is down than normal, and so the tree limbs are hovering pretty high above the water, you're going to get less and less bites in those type of situations than you are with the limbs like right above the water. And you know, I don't know, sometimes it's better to pick up something like a prop bait if there's a big gap between the water, the surface of the water and the limbs. But if you got a situation where, like we have here in most of these areas, where the tree limbs are actually touching the water, that's like a big key. Like right up ahead here, we've got some limbs that are really right in the water. And that is what I want to see, like right here. If I can make a good cast in there. Oh yeah, like this. This is so good. So good looking right here. Oh man, I can't believe I didn't get bit on that cast. Oh, that cast deserves a fish, and it got one. Oh yeah. What did I tell you? The leaves or the branches are touching the water, they're entering the water. It gives those fish not only shade, but something to relate around, you know? So like some kind of, you know, cover that actually penetrates the water. Something to sit next to instead of just sit below, if that makes any sense. That was cool. I knew I was gonna get bit. And that, with this tree right here, you know, as much of the limbs that enter the water. I made a good skip back there. And the best part about this bite is you don't really need any technology to, you know, be ultra effective throwing a frog around shade lines. I mean, obviously a good trolling motor like the Lowrance Ghost is a must for boat positioning and just being efficient. But, you know, I'm not really using electronics or anything, you know, to find these fish or catch them, which, you know, is fun when you can get on a bite where it's just all visual and it's all just instinctual. That's a lot of fun to me. That was fun. That was cool. You know, with this bite, sometimes you can't see the fish because they're so far back underneath this stuff, but I watched him come out and slurp it down. These fish are hitting it pretty good. Oh my gosh. It just hit. And now I'm all tangled around Woo-wee. That was wild. Sometimes they just hit as soon as it hits the water. My goodness, that fish was waiting for it. Man, when they hit that hard, you know that you're on the right deal. You are on the right deal. Well, anyways, guys, you get the point. Fishing in this type of scenario where you've got a lot of overhanging trees on a lake is a really killer way to catch fish during the summertime. Again, I think the biggest key is having, you know, heavy shade and having good oxygen content up shallow. You know, there's some lakes that just don't have good oxygen out deep, so it's just not suitable for those fish to live out there on offshore structure, and I think that this lake is one of them. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, drop a comment below, but also if you have a topic that you want me to discuss in a future video, please don't hesitate to ask. Drop that in the comment section below. And, you know, if you enjoy this content, make sure that you consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel. That is a great way to support this channel. So thank you guys very much. All the products that I used today are going to be in the description below. Other than that, I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.